Hello, everyone. My name's James. Welcome to the 1000th Planet FPL podcast and this week's Clash of the Correspondents, or should I call it Clash of the Oil Correspondents? Firstly, let me introduce you to our Newcastle United correspondents. I'm a Bibby. How are you, Si?
Yeah, doing well, James. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you, mate. And our Manchester City correspondent, Jonny Pringle. How are you, Johnny?
Yeah, good. Thanks, James.
Good man. So I would normally start with you for the home team, but I've got to get the important question out of the way for Johnny. How's it feel to be married, mate?
Pretty good, to be fair.
Still going?
So I got a bit of... still going. When we picked the wedding date to be the week before the start of the season, but then the World Cup fucked that up and it brought the season forward by a week, and I was panicking that City might play on the Friday night. Luckily, we played the Sunday, but then obviously I realised that the FPL deadline was going to be as I was about to finish my wedding speech. So there was no last-minute tinkering for me. Unfortunately, I missed that Perisic news.
I tried.
Yeah, you tried. In fact, one of my mates texted me, actually, literally just after I get married, saying, like, oh, take Haaland out for Kane. I've heard some news, and he was winding me up, trying to wind me up. But, yeah, it was a bit... It was... My tweet that I put out actually was true. Didn't think about FPL all day, and that was probably the best thing for me, to be honest.
I mean, if you're thinking about FPL on your wedding day, there's got to be issues anyway, haven't there?
Yeah, I was getting heckled by a couple of mates who know I'm massive into FPL during the speeches. But yeah, it was fun.
Well, many congrats, mate. Si, you got any love stories you want to share at the moment? Or you told me your missus left and she took your headphones.
Yeah, that's the extent of it. No, I'm just surprised Johnny's here, to be honest. I thought his new wife might have made him sign a prenup to stop doing all this FPL bollocks, but he got a good one.
No, he's got her to sign one to say he can carry on, basically, right? So let's talk about the start of Newcastle season. 2 games, 2 clean sheets. Happy?
Yeah, solid. It's quite hard to actually draw any conclusions from the 2 games. I think they were two wildly different opponents, and we're going to play a third one now in City. So obviously the Forest game, I was pretty confident that we get a clean sheet, but we absolutely dominated that game. It's been a long time since I've seen us control a football match like that. And then Brighton, if you read the narrative around that game, it seems like we got absolutely battered. I think they just it was us as a man-to-man pressing team trying to figure out that style and kind of implement it against probably the best man-to-man pressing team in the league. And they just created a lot more clear-cut chances than us. But the game wasn't as one-sided as people would have you believe. So happy to come out of that with a 0-0.
How many shots off the line, Si?
2. Well,
2, okay.
One of them was 3/4 of the way over the line, which is almost a Trippier own goal. And then the other one was just in front of the line. But they obviously created some clear-cut chances. Pope made a couple of decent saves. I think the weather was a factor. We just kind of tied in the second half, started all right in the first one. But yeah, best start to the season I can remember for a long time, going unbeaten in 2 games. And, what a time to welcome Man City.
Very much so. And for yourself, Johnny, are you happier with your start, 2 wins, 2 clean sheets, or are you happier with Liverpool's results?
Happy with United's results.
I said to Johnny before we started, anything you want to talk about? He said, yeah, United. You must be happy with, seriously, you must be happy with Liverpool's results.
Yeah, very. If you'd have flipped it round and said we're 4 points behind after 2 games, Gary Neville and Carragher say it's a lot. It's not like it used to be. I can't remember what the stats were for the average number of points dropped, but yeah, you wouldn't want to be. I wouldn't want to be in that position. I'm sure the Liverpool fans aren't happy. So yeah, it's a good position to be in after 2 games. Can't lie.
It's mad to think that you already start looking at 36 games to go. You've already got a 4-point advantage. But we always say that you don't want to be adrift to City and start looking at chasing. And obviously, you've got the opportunity on Sunday to go 7 clear and really put the pressure on that game on Monday night for them.
Yeah, and so early in the season, obviously you can't get that excited about points leads. Because Liverpool managed to claw a 8.1 back on us last season, didn't it? So you can't get too excited. But yeah, I remember being in a bar with my dad on the first day of season when Liverpool were playing Fulham, and he was pacing up and down the bar. I was like, Dad, come on, it's game week 1. And he was just every point counts, John, every point counts. And he's right. So you've just got to take them as they come.
Yeah, absolutely. If you do win on Sunday, What would you want the result to be on Monday, just out of interest?
I don't know, because I think it would actually be quite funny if United went above Liverpool. So the United v Liverpool games are just quite enjoyable these days, because last year United got embarrassed in both games, which was enjoyable. And if United take anything off Liverpool, it's a bonus. So I'll just take whatever it gives us.
Okay. So the transfer window's obviously still got 2 weeks to run. Are you surprised at Newcastle's business or quietly happy? How are you feeling?
Signings have been good that we've made. If you believe the media reports, we've bid for about 50 different players. And it all seems like the one thing I would say is probably true is the budget that we've got remaining for this window, which I think is around 40 million. So if you look at the types of players that we've been linked to, that's either going to be two 20 million pound signings plus the added payments over the next couple of years, or a loan signing, and we'll spank it on like one 40 million player. But I do think we'll spend the money. Probably going to be late in the window. I think I said on the pre-season pod that I wouldn't be surprised if we get a Chelsea cast off. I still think that will happen, whether it's like Pulisic or Cho potentially. So I think it's a bit too early to judge. But yeah, Botman looks really good. Obviously, we spent a lot of money on Bruno. I think both of those players are the type of caliber of players that we're trying to sign or have signed. And still surprised that we've got both of them, to be honest. I think they're kind of a level above the rest of the squad at the moment. So if it takes a bit more time to get that level of player in, I'm happy to be patient with it.
Why the limit on budget?
There's various articles floating around FFP. We seem to be the only ones that actually give a shit about FFP. I don't know whether like there's a feeling in the club that because we're like the new boys on the scene that potentially we might get looked at and scrutinized more than others. But I think it comes down to commercially, like we've just not done anything in the last 10 years, 15 years under Ashley. Like we've literally made, I think, £2 million more when Ashley left compared to when he started from like the commercial side of the club. So at the moment with like current sponsorship deals, there's just not that revenue potential. Now, I think that will change next year. We've cancelled our sponsorship agreement with Fun88. So we'll be getting a new shirt sponsor in. We've got a new sleeve sponsor that I think is on par with like what the top 6 are getting, not the top 2 or 3 clubs. So I think that side of it is kind of hampering us a bit for this particular year. But I think next year we'll hopefully, like with a shout of potentially getting into Conference League, European Conference League, we could really flex next season.
Is there any frustration about it? I don't get that sense from Newcastle fans. There's frustration. I get an overriding feeling of there's an acceptance that people want a slow process rather than go and take the gamble and spend 200 million. And then if you don't get in the Champions League, you'll end up having to sell people in a few years, because it can go that way. If you spend it all and then if FFP really does hang around and restrict you. Is that right, that people are actually prepared to be patient about this?
Yeah, I think so. There's a bit of hysteria on Twitter, but that's kind of what Twitter is around like players. And even in the chat groups that I'm in, I see like whenever we get linked to a player, it kind of becomes like the topic of conversation for 20 minutes. Like, oh, where would he fit in the team? How much is he going to cost? That sort of stuff. I tend to try and stay away from it and just sort of see what happens. You look at like the business that we've done, with the exception of Botman, I think all the deals have been pretty quiet. Like no one really saw the Nick Pope deal happening. Trippier was out of nowhere. So apart from Botman, I think we've kind of gone about our business quietly. I do think it will probably end up being one of those players that we have been linked to, because we've been linked to so many that does come in. But no, I think the fans are kind of realistic. We're not in the same situation that City were when they got their money. There's a lot more kind of restrictions, I think, on like how you spend and how you go about spending it. We've seen what's happened to Everton with the money that they've spent. Don't want to do that either. Happy with the manager, happy with the club ownership, happy with the direction that we're going in. I think if we don't sign that player at the end of the window, there will be a bit of frustration, not just from us, but I think Eddie Howe as well will be a bit frustrated. But I still think at the moment, looking at how the other teams that were in and around those European spots are doing, I still think we'll have a good season and could potentially, even with the squad that we've got, if we stay lucky with injuries, like compete for one of those European spots.
Well, yeah, Johnny will be laughing quietly, but I think Sixth could certainly be very much up for grabs this season, the way it looks at the moment, doesn't it? Johnny, how do you see them? How do you view Newcastle at the moment? Si's right to say it was different to when obviously you had to take over, there weren't quite the same restrictions as what Newcastle are under now. How do you view them? And are you already looking at them as a long-term threat?
A little bit. I see them sort of like the start of the journey that we were at. As I alludes to, the circumstances are very different. There was no FFP when we got taken over. We were able to splash the cash a little bit more. I think as Si alludes to, I think that marquee signing would help. City were very lucky in that we made some very opportunistic marquee signings, Tevez being the big one. Like I said, that was the big sort of opportunity and we took it. And then, I mean, a couple of signings later, David Silva, Yaya Toure. Again, just sort of opportunities, like Toure was being replaced by Busquets at Barcelona. Go and throw money at him. Go and tell David Silva that Toure signed, and we've signed David, and we've signed Tevez the year before, and it all just came together with a few marquee signings. I think that's maybe what Newcastle could do with looking at. I also think they probably started maybe a little bit further back from where we were. Obviously, we'd already had that first takeover with Shinawatra, where we'd already managed to get ourselves up to sort of like Europa League level. So it'll be interesting maybe if Newcastle do manage to get themselves to that Europa League level this season, whether that then marquee signings, whether just throwing money at a couple of big name players with maybe a year left on the contract, that might come. That's where they might elevate themselves to the next level.
They can't take some of the gambles like you. I'm thinking of like list of strikers that you spent money on, the Adebayors, Santa Cruz's, Wilfred Boney, Joe. Yeah, it's probably others I'm forgetting, or you'll remember better than I can. Actually, some of your better signings were some of the cheap ones, weren't it? I mean, what did you pay for Vincent Kompany, for example?
Like 6 mil or something.
Yeah, exactly. So I think for 40 million, if that's what you're saying, the budget you're working with inside, and it's not to say there won't be outgoings that increases that, it's probably not going to be a marquee signing, is there?
No. I think some of the players that we were looking at the start of the window, like Mendy, I think would have been a marquee signing. The right winger from Leverkusen, they wanted 60 plus for him. I just don't think we've got the budget for that currently. I think next summer is potentially where we finish. I think could be the summer that we make that at least one of those marquee signings. But it depends what business we do this year. I think our main problem next season, if we do push for the European places, and if we don't, is squad depth. Like at the moment, Eddie Howe just hasn't got any options like on the bench to change it. So our first 11 is good. Beneath that is like very average.
An issue. Yeah, I think there's a couple of areas definitely that I need strengthening before the window closes. Another midfielder, I think, which gives you more flexibility in terms of how Grimares plays. And this right-sided attacker position, I think, as well. Has the James Maddison talk gone completely cold?
Yeah, I think so. The reports are that we lowballed them, and we were trying to do this kind of installment deal as a way to get around FFP. So I think, honestly, the bid was probably 20-30 million. And let's be honest, he's worth more than that. So I was never one that thought that deal was going to happen for Maddison. I think it will be Chelsea that we sniff around. I think the squad's too big. It's insane, like their wage bill. There's got to be some players that are looking at the World Cup and thinking like Pulisic, for example. I saw he was linked with Manchester United today. Like if he wants to go there, and fair enough. But like I think we're an attractive club for one of those sort of Chelsea cast-offs, if you will.
They're the sort of statements that I think like Newcastle need to make, like beating United to players, like we did. Go and take Tevez, throw money at him. Go and take Toure, throw money at him. And the more sort of like big players you get, the more other big players will look and think, oh well, if they're going there, just the more attractive you get.
I think our wage structure is going to be a slight hindrance to that. Like our top paid player is Trippier. He's on 140k. And I think Guimaraes is the only other player that's above 100k. I don't know what Pulisic is on, but it's going to be like silly money.
Yeah.
So like signing him permanently, I can't see it. I think that would just smash our wage structure. And he's not the sort of player I think you necessarily like want to pay like through 3x your top wage player on, because he's going to play like 10, 15 games a season. So if on the pitch, I think he'd be a fantastic addition. He's a right-sided forward that scores goals. That's what we need. He's the perfect model player that we need.
Jonny, do you feel Newcastle taking some of the pressure off you in terms of the scrutiny of your own club?
Yeah, probably at the time. It just always seems to come back on City whenever we're successful. Like there was a time when obviously we went like 10 points clear at the start of last season, and all the stories come up and about ruining competition and the ownership and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, when it's close again, them stories seem to disappear. But yeah, Newcastle's ownership did take the heat off us.
Doesn't bother you, does it?
What, Newcastle taking the heat off us?
Yeah.
No, that doesn't bother us because obviously the less scrutiny City
I mean in the sense that they have got even more money.
No. I think City are now at the. But obviously, like I said, in 2008 when we got taken over, it was exciting in that the owners could literally throw money at it. But we know that that's not the case anymore. However much money owners have, I don't think really matters anymore. Doesn't really dictate how much a club can spend. City have obviously got to the level where we are so sustainable and we make so much money that we can spend within our means now anyway.
And I take it the reception around the club generally side is welcoming generally, as in they've tried
absolutely.
to integrate around the city and stuff.
Yeah, compared to what it was before. Yeah, 100%. Well, I wouldn't say 100%. I'd say when the takeover happened in the first couple of months, there was a few people that objected to it, and like rightly so. That's their opinion, but that seems to have pretty much gone away now. But I would question this sort of notion that we've got the most money and an unlimited amount of money. Like our funding comes from an investment pot, and the way that investment pots work is you invest a series round of money. You have like a certain amount across your entire portfolio, and you will put it into your various different projects. And I think for us to get our next round of investment would require going through that kind of investment process. I don't think it's a case of like us being able to say like, oh, this player's become available for 150 million. Let's go spend it. I don't think like that kind of liquid cash is going to be available. It's going to have to be very sort of strategically planned out. We've just got a new CEO and that's brought in. The guy used to be at Spurs. And I think a part of that is just a long kind of steady progressive climb, and then depending on what we do at the end of each season, like we'll adjust our targets and adjust our budget accordingly. But I'm just happy to go along with the ride. I think our ownership group's great, like really positive impact on the club. Hopefully Amanda Staveley can stay in that position, because there is some questions as to whether like they will eventually kind of move out for someone that comes from the PIF side. But yeah, I'd say just happy to start the season positively and be looking upwards.
Be interesting to see what the narrative is around the football club if you don't do anything in the next 2 weeks. Say the transfer window closes and you only get like one player in, a Pulisic or someone similar on loan. If some of the narrative around the spending might change, actually. Jonny, last year, only 4-0 and 5-0 against Newcastle. This is normally an easy fixture for you. Is it still? Newcastle
away, traditionally, always was. I think 2019 we drew. 2018-19 season we lost. 19-20 season we drew. So it's been a little bit more difficult in recent years. Last year, I think when we played them was right before the January transfer window. So it was when Newcastle were arguably the weakest, really looking in danger. So that wasn't a tough game, but yeah, certainly not going to be as easy as it has been. I'm expecting a difficult game.
Do you go into these games with a different feeling now following the Liverpool at home towards the end of the season, where you felt disappointed, I think, to lose 1-0 on a day, felt like you'd underperformed a little? The victory against Arsenal, that kind of, you need the kind of signature big game win at St. James's with the new ownership. Is the feeling going into these games different now? Or is there still an expectation of, bottom line, they're one of the best teams in the world, still expect to get beat?
I would say the expectation has increased, but I would say the appetite for the game definitely has. I think people will be going to the game thinking that, like, you know, we're gonna enjoy this, rather than previous years where it's like, oh, this is like we're on absolutely like hide into nothing. I'm not saying that anyone thinks that we could take something from the game, but I think we'll definitely give them a game. You look at how we set up last season. we've made a couple of improvements to the team. System-wise, question is whether Howe's going to go in with the same 4-4-3, 4-3-3, I should say. But no, I think
4-3-3 would probably be quite handy, mate, to be honest.
Yeah, I think we're up for it. I think it'd be hard pressed to say, like, do we think we're going to get some from the game? We'll definitely give them a game. I think the atmosphere is going to be great. It kind of maybe depends what happens in the first 10, 15 minutes. Like traditionally, we have let in early goals against them, but I just think the feeling around the club is that, you know, we'll support the team, support the lads, and, you know, just give it a go.
Do you foresee, Si, any change in system? I mean, could we see a 5-4-1, for example, on Sunday?
Potentially, yeah. And I think I think Target is due to come back. So he missed the Brighton game. So Byrne went and played left back. Botman came in, played really well. I think there will be a temptation to play Shah, Byrne, and Botman. And I actually think dropping Botman would be a mistake for this game. One of his best attributes is his ability to play that first-time ball with both feet. So he doesn't need 2 or 3 touches like some of the other centre-backs on the team. And if we're going to break through the lines and against City and break the press, if they do decide to come out and press us, I think that's going to be quite key. And I think having 3 at the back, even from an offensive point of view, would be quite beneficial. And if you look at the way that we set up in the last 2 games, like our fullbacks kind of play very high. Byrne was actually, his average position was higher than Trippier's at the weekend. So if I was him, I would be tempted based on the fact that he played them twice last year. The aggregate score was 9-0. And I don't think 5 at the back would necessarily be a negative thing for us.
No, I don't think you treat City as a real one-off case, don't you? Jonny, when you played at West Ham, we saw this 2-3-5 within possession with both fullbacks coming inverted, which we don't often get. Somebody kind of won. That wasn't the case against Bournemouth, though, was it? It looked, from what I've seen of the game, that it was more like João Cancelo flying up the touchline, or is that incorrect?
Yeah, I wasn't at the game. I've seen the highlights from it, but yeah, it seems like Cancelo was wider, sort of more traditional than last season, with Walker sort of tucked in. That seems to be Pep's sort of favoured almost system, and when he plays Mahrez in that he gets Walker to tuck in and Mahrez goes really wide, almost like a right winger, and then Cancelo goes wide like the left winger. It's interesting to see Foden sort of tuck in a little bit, but yeah, system did change from the West Ham game.
So can it really be that Mahrez will impact the position of Cancelo then? In terms of how he plays? If
you just think about how City play 4-3-3, and then in possession, the 2 wide players, you can push Walker up and Cancelo up, but it just leaves the 2 centre-backs. So I think he always wants 3 at the back. So to sort of get that, he'll tuck Walker in, Mahrez wide right, Cancelo wide left. Yeah, I think that's how he gets his width in a system like that.
Yeah, I think against an opponent like Newcastle, have got a counter-attacking weapon in St. Maximin. Yeah. They're not going to leave St. Maximin versus just Diaz and Aki if that's the 2, for example. So we can certainly expect at least Walker to tuck in again this week, can't we?
Yeah.
He's getting spoken about, Kyle Walker, a lot from an FPL perspective. Yeah. 5 million up to 5.1, back-to-back clean sheets. As it's been put to me, yes, it may only be 6 points, but it's 6 points nearly every week. How do you feel about him as a potential asset, Jonny?
My position is mellowed, sort of slightly, or softened slightly. I remember in pre-season, I assumed that we were going to sign Cucurella. That obviously hasn't happened. Walker traditionally hasn't been that good an FPL asset. Doesn't really get any bonus points. Doesn't get many assists and goals. So if he does play, he's just a, like you say, best case scenario, maybe a 6, maybe 7-pointer. I assumed that his game time was going to be shared around with Cucurella, but that looks less of the case now. We've signed a left back, Sergio Gomez, from Anderlecht, but I've just no idea how good he's going to be. If it turns out that we've scouted a gem, then that could still happen. But in these early games, I don't know how much Gomez is going to play. Like I said, I've just seen nothing of him. It certainly seems like City's first choice fullbacks now will be Cancelo and Walker. So it depends whether you're happy to spend that 5.1 million on a player that's just going to get you 6 points. But like you say, you look at City's next few fixtures up until game week 8 or 9, you can see a lot of clean sheets there. And whether you want to go with someone a bit more exciting like Cucurella, I don't know. But I don't think he's going to be, Walker will be rotated as much as I thought he would be in pre-season.
Okay. Have you heard anything about another left back? I've heard like Rafael Guerrero from Dortmund mentioned, for example. Because one of the things I kept hearing about Gomez was it won't just necessarily be just Gomez. City may be looking for another left back as well.
That's what I've heard as well. Apparently City have had Gomez on the radar for a while and were then just going to send him on loan to Girona, like one of the sister clubs. When the news got briefed that we were actually going to buy him and keep him in the first team squad, it was that we were still looking for another left back. But then there was a quote from Pep that said, we're not looking for a new left back. And it's just the way that he's been announced. Usually when City sort of make CFG signings, as we call it, to just send off to like the sister clubs, they don't get a big announcement like they did, like Gomez did. So I think that might just be it. It might just be him.
Okay, fair enough. But obviously we can't comment in terms of how likely he's be involved. At the time of recording, we haven't got an FPL price to discuss for him. I guess he'd probably come in at 5 as well as a guess because people won't know, I would assume.
Yeah.
But Aki can cover that side. Laporte, when he's back available, which he's not at the moment, can cover that side.
Yeah.
John Stones can cover right back as well. It's not necessarily a clear run list for Kyle Walker, is it?
Not necessarily. I don't think Stones at right back is ideal. I don't think Ake or Laporte at left back is ideal. I think it will be Walker, Cancelo, and Gomez, and then, like say, maybe Ake and Stones in an absolute emergency. I can't see Walker's place being challenged that much by the centre backs. Like I say, only in an emergency.
When the Champions League starts up, and it's obviously very subject to what your draw is. If you have a difficult draw, for example, Walker, I think, clearly first choice. He wants him in the games where he's got counter-attacking weapons going against you, right? That's clear.
Yeah.
Which does mean some of them easier fixtures sometimes. I look at Palace in 4, for example, and think, well, they definitely want Kyle Walker to play against Zaha.
Yeah.
And he's obviously going to want him against St. Maximin this weekend. 5 against Forest, Villa in 6. He might think he can do without in one of them. I think that's where I'm at with it. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. Again, you just can't predict it with Pep. I can't remember whether it was the game at Palace last year or the year before where you just thought Kyle Walker was absolutely nailed on to play because he always has a good game against Zaha. And he just dropped him for Cancelo, and Cancelo had a good game. So, your instinct is to always say if there is one player on the opposition that's a particularly good counter-attacker, then play Walker because he gives you so much cover. But you just don't know what he's thinking.
So, what would you say to people who are thinking about moving Trippier to Walker if they've got that little bit of money in the bank?
I mean, I had the option of looking at Walker, but I decided to go Gundogan instead last week. I don't know. I think the upside and the points potential of Trippier, and also you're going to want to play Walker every week, aren't you? You're not going to rotate him.
Never leave him out.
You wouldn't. So as your third City option, where I think with Trippier, if your squad's set up, you can kind of dip him in and out. I think there's better 5 million picks than the pair of them now with Cucurella coming on board. But again, you've got the same situation with Chelsea is like you're going to want to play him every week. So I think that flexibility with Trippier and the fact that he's so important to the team and the upside of him just kind of shades it for me. But you can't fault people that have gone that way and have got the 12 points in the bank and are quite happy to.
It's 14, isn't it? So I think with Trippier, 2 7.
Oh no, I was talking about Walker.
Oh, Walker.
No, yeah, with Trippier, as I said last week, he could have conceded, and that clearance off the line, which probably helped him get that bonus point, could also have been an own goal because he kind of touched it backwards before he eventually cleared it. So yeah, it could have been anything. So I think I'm not holding him because of the fact that he's got 2 clean sheets. I just saw opportunities to make moves in other areas this week. But yeah, no, I think it's a good pick. And I think we've talked about that fixture swing from 8 onwards. I think if you've got him, and depending on when you're looking to wildcard, I still think he's a good pick.
So just clarify, you do or you don't own Trippier at the moment?
I do.
You do.
Yeah.
Are you starting him this week?
considering it, but probably not. I think let's see what happens with Pereira. Yeah, I'm not going to start him. I don't think. I think he's going to be on my bench.
Bartled. You mentioned you've gone down the Gundogan route. Seems like a nice segue. Johnny, thoughts on Gundogan, and what's the impact of this news that we now think Bernardo Silva's definitely going to stay?
I was ready to come on here and give a nice passionate argument about how I still don't think Bernardo's going to leave. It's been something that's annoyed me recently. People just assuming that Bernardo is going to leave. When we talked about it last time, I said that if it gets to this stage in the window and Barcelona still haven't come up with anything, we just can't sell him because there's just no replacement you can find this late, and that appears to be the case. So the discussion about Gundogan is just the usual discussion. He's one of the three midfielders that will be rotated. De Bruyne will probably get more game time. So it's between Bernardo and Gundogan. Gundogan appears to have the nod at the moment because of the sort of stuff that was up in the air with Bernardo. He's been given the captain's armband. I wouldn't read too much into that. I'm not sure how much the captaincy matters at City. They've got these 5 captains that they get from Barcelona that they just seem to pass about. So I wouldn't see him as being any more nailed because of that. But he has started the season well. But I wouldn't be surprised if he just got dropped for Bernardo.
Well, is there a case to say in terms of the 2 games you've had, you knew you were going to play against 2 teams who were going to cede possession and very much sit behind it, and actually having Gundogan's midfield runs is beneficial to him, whereas some of the games coming up might not be quite that way?
Yeah, Bernardo, you want him in there when he needs to dog, when it's going to be like battles, energetic games. You're right, but Gundogan seems to suit the games more where you need him drifting into the box, where you need his sort of nous in the box. And you're right, West Ham and Bournemouth were more suited to that.
So what's Newcastle?
I don't know. Just because Gundogan, he seems to be quite streaky with Bernardo and Gundogan. Whichever one of them is in form, he seems to they're the one that's in the team, and then he'll maybe rotate them. I don't really know what Pep's thinking.
He did start Rodri and Silva last season at St James's Park. I don't know if that's like any relevance whatsoever. Then he started Gundo at the City ground against us. So, Etihad.
You just don't know. But in a general comment, I think Gundogan's a decent shout to put in, especially while the Bernardo news was up in the air. I think he's still a good shout to put in, but just accept the usual rotation with Bernardo. I think it's maybe slightly less susceptible to rotation at the moment, but all of a sudden Bernardo could just put a run together. You know how good he is, how good he was last season, and then all of a sudden Gundogan finds himself on the bench more often than not.
He could also just suddenly decide to put Calvin Phillips in the team.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your view on the moment? I guess you've hardly seen anything of him in a City shirt.
Sort of same as last time I came on in pre-season. Just haven't really seen much of him. He might just randomly get a game over Rodri. Like I say, can't just really comment until we've seen anything of him, really.
Okay, so that's still the usual mess in midfield. Is Walker the best defensive player available to FPL managers at around about that price from City? Or does Nathan Ake offer a better alternative at the moment?
No, I think Walker's the better shout than Ake long term. Again, Ake's sort of similar to the Gundogan situation. I think he's had a good start to the season. It'd be harsh for Pep to drop him, but I think inevitably Stones, Diaz and Laporte are just better than him, and they will end up. And the first choice partnership is just 2 from them 3. I always argue that I think our best centre back is John Stones. The two best partnerships that City have is Diaz and Stones and Laporte and Stones. So I think that naturally the first choice partnership will end up being one of them. I thought it was just going to be a matter of time before Stones comes in for Ake and we end up with Stones and Diaz. But to be fair to Ake, he's doing okay. And like I said, it'd be harsh to drop him. But I wouldn't be surprised if it was just a matter of time until he is dropped and Walker continues to get the games.
Just interested to come back on your Stones comment there. Most people would probably think Laporte and Diaz was the strongest partnership. What is it in your mind that gives Stones the benefit in terms of a partnership with one or the other? I
think you could argue that in terms of attributes, Laporte and Diaz are probably the better individual players. But Stones just seems to have this just calmness on the ball and just he's improved everything. Do you know when he just used to be so prone to mistakes? He seems to have just shaken out all that. And he just seems to be able to just, like I say, partner either of them better. When Diaz and Laporte play together, I don't know, it's just not the same. It's one of them things that's just very hard to explain. But yeah, I think City's best centre-back partnership has to have John Stones in it.
What's the best centre-back partnership at Newcastle, Si? Or do we not know at the moment?
I think it will be Botman and Shaw. Eventually, they'll get the most run this season if all four of them are fit. But Burn played well again, can cover in left back, and as I said, I think as a defensive three, they've all got quite unique qualities. Be interesting to see that, and I think we've got the fullback/wing backs to be able to play that system. So we might see it this weekend. Might be interesting to see all three.
Could we see Burn push Target out as a regular left back, do you think, to enable Botman to get into the team?
No, I think Target's first choice left back. Depends on the matchup, really. I think Burn, most people he's going to come up against are kind of the smaller, trickier wingers. But yeah, I think Howe's got options in terms of what system he wants to play, and putting Burn out there does allow you to make in-game changes quite flexibly. I don't think we're there as a kind of team or as a squad yet to be able to do that, like we've seen some of the other teams do at the start of the season. But no, I think the majority of the season, if everyone's fit, it'll be Botman Shaw.
What would you say to those who've gone early on Fabian Schär's game week 1 haul and have got? Is it kind of similar with, I suppose, unlike Trippier, if you've got, you probably really are looking to bench this week, aren't you?
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, he's got a goal in him, but typically I'm going to say they come in the fixtures where we're either chasing and need a goal in the last couple of minutes, or we're like comfortably cruising but still haven't scored, and he gets those opportunities to really kind of like take those pop shots from the edge of the box. I don't see either of those scenarios probably playing out against City, to be honest, this weekend. So he's a good pick. I think 4.5. I think Botman might prove to be a better one, not in terms of goal output, just in terms of Schär always seems to get some kind of facial injury every game. Like, it seems like someone's trying to like break his nose, or
it's a pretty boy, isn't
he? He just seems to like bleed every game. I don't know what it is about him.
Just to confirm that obviously Darwin Núñez will be suspended.
Yeah,
when you play each other.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting battle. But no, I think those two. I think more interesting ones in midfield if he sticks with Guimaraes, Joelinton and Willock, which I think that he will. And actually, I think Willock has started the season very well, not necessarily from an attacking output point of view, but his kind of pressing and running with the ball. I think that midfield three, depending on where De Bruyne plays and if he kind of drops in, can give City some problems this weekend.
So you think Bruno will play normally as the 6 against City on Sunday then?
I think so. He got dispossessed like far too much for anyone's liking. I know Howe won't be happy with it against Brighton, and we know like Pep, people have said he's defensive first, and I think he will have seen what Potter did, which was basically put 2 men on him and not allow him to turn with the ball and have some joy at that. And I think it might be something that he looks at as, okay, so how are Newcastle going to actually hurt us? Like Trippier from set pieces and from out wide, and Bruno being able to kind of like dictate play and get our sort of possession play started. And I think depending on whether he views that as a big enough threat to do something with it, at some point I think we'll see Sean Longstaff. But I think he'll start with the same 3 that's played the first 2 games and played pretty well and kind of give it a go.
Guimaraes owners, what would you say to them at 6 million if he's playing that position?
What's his ownership now?
It's down to under 10%. A lot of that could well be, let's say, less engaged players rather than the community. I'm not seeing him too many Twitter teams at the moment. I mean, probably if he hasn't gone, he probably will be going.
He's probably going to go in my differential team. It's started now.
Okay,
he's under 10%. I think, to be honest, every week, I think we're going to get a different player that gets highlighted in that price bracket. I am now thinking I have avoided it completely. That kind of 6 million, I don't see a whole outside of Martinelli. Obviously, I don't see a whole lot of value in it. So I'd be tempted to move that up or down rather than kind of have another player in that same price bracket as Martinelli. And if you haven't got Martinelli and you can afford it, that's a no-brainer, I think, making that move. But he'll get points this season.
Is he worth the saving on St. Maximin?
St. Maximin doesn't really seem to be enjoying his football as much at the moment. And it's something that I was conscious of, that the more Howe imprinted his particular system and was asking players to do specific things, that St. Maximin, who is like just a complete wild card, might struggle in that system. And there's been a bit of flack from Newcastle fans towards him, somewhat fairly. He did an atrocious dive and got booked for simulation against Brighton. It seemed to kind of affect him a bit last week. But he's, as we said, pre-season, he's going to stay fit. And he did stay fit last season. I think he'll stay fit this year. I would be quite happy to see him switched out to the right. I think he actually had some joy, and he can get in pretty good crossing positions from the right. I think from the left, his tendency is to just dribble into the middle, take a shot. Whereas from the right, he seems to be able to kind of see the pitch more. And he almost picked Wilson out a couple of times against Brighton. But obviously that's dependent on us getting someone that can play on the left, like Pedro. So I can't actually remember what the original question was.
Well, I don't
know if I just answered it.
No, it doesn't matter. On that, it would make sense to switch him to the right, get him away from that Kyle Walker problem, and get him at Cancelo. Is he rubbish defensively, Johnny? I know he's a world-class player. Does he have serious issues defensively? Yeah.
No, I think it's sort of overplayed. I think it's like Trent as well, because they're so good going forward. People are looking for digs at him. Yeah, I think he's prone to the odd lapse in concentration. I actually think he's quite a good standing tackler. He gets his foot in quite well. Sometimes he dives in at sort of like players like Salah when they're running at him. But I don't see him as like a defensive liability in most games. Like, say maybe in again against Real Madrid, when it really the heat is on in the Champions League semi-finals, maybe do with someone who's a bit more switched on than him. But I don't think it's ever really a concern unless, like I say, you're playing against a Salah or a top winger out there.
But if you put a St. Maximin out there who's just going to go and run at him, I mean, St. Maximin is difficult for anybody to deal with, but Walker's pace obviously gets him out of so many problems.
Yeah. But like I said, Cancelo, like I say, 1v1 is quite good. Like I say, I actually think his standing tackling is quite underrated.
I take it you've got Cancelo in FPL at the moment, John?
Yeah.
So what have you got? Cancelo and Haaland?
Yeah.
What's the plan? Where's this third City player coming from, mate?
Don't know if they are. I've got a pretty templated team, like everyone.
Boring, isn't it?
Yeah, no. I think the guys who started with 2 in defence or Ederson are probably feeling pretty smug right now.
Yeah, of course.
That was maybe a good shout. But again, it's like we said in pre-season, it's just for sort of value elsewhere, and the sort of Walker situation was up in.
Did you make a transfer last week, Johnny?
No, I made the first transfer last night, actually, which is the most boring one I've ever made. Bailey down to Harrison Reed.
That is sexy, mate. Mate, if anything's going to start this FPL season and being template so far, you bought Harrison Reed for Leon Bailey with your first transfer. That's class, mate.
Yeah, just typical boring.
Why is everyone playing so boring this season? I'm like,
because the template started really well.
So dull.
The template's so good. I was listening to the FPLY yesterday, and I can't remember which one of them made the point, but the template 5 years ago was a bad template because it was just all the casual players going off points, but now the casual players are genuinely going off good picks, and you're able to get a really good template team because of the pricing.
Well, that's it. It's like my dad's
going against it.
My dad's a perfect example of someone that plays, but he'll look at like player picks, like percentage owned and stuff, but he that won't be his only decision, but it will be like his first thought is like, okay, so this player's, and you look at the template and how highly owned it is, and they just kind of piled onto that. But like, yeah, I was quite happy I went Gundo last week. I don't know if it's going to work out full time, but like it was nice last week, and I've already taken a hit this week. I don't know. I can't just stick to a template team. I'm not going to win FPL. So like, I don't know. I understand the point of it. As long as I beat my dad at the end of the season, pick up my £100. That's all I really care about. And the Correspondents League, actually, I kind of finished all right last season.
As long as I beat Surge, which is inevitability, obviously.
Yeah,
Other than that, not that bothered. Yeah,
with it.
no, quite right. Jonny, who's your intended captain this week in FPL?
Salah.
That's straightforward for you?
I think so. Thought about Haaland at Newcastle, but just, again, Newcastle, good defensive record. Tough place to go. Salah. It's a good fixture for him, isn't it?
Well, I was part thinking about your former striker as well, mate.
Jesus. Yeah, I know. I thought about Jesus as well. I think I'd probably towards Jesus over Haaland. It's just Arsenal, isn't it? You just don't know whether Arsenal have got an Arsenal in them at Bournemouth away. They seem to have changed, don't they? Jesus' stats are good and Bournemouth's Bournemouth's defensive stats are bad. Maybe it's skewed from last week. But yeah, you just don't know if Arsenal were to pull an Arsenal and then Salah was to bang a hat-trick. I think a lot of people will have memories from last season's haul from Salah at Old Trafford.
Yes, absolutely. So, who are you on at the moment? Do you know? No, James,
Salah.
I don't.
It's probably Salah at the moment. But if I didn't support Newcastle, I think people are sleeping on Haaland. If Howe decides to like go man-for-man press and plays a high line, which he has done and tried to do last year at a couple of the bigger clubs, like Haaland, he could have a field day. Like it could go that way. I honestly think this game could. There's like 3 or 4 different multiverse scenarios this game could go, and one of them is Haaland scores 2 and gets an assist or something, and we lose 3-0, 3-1. And I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Like there might be a lot of space for him. I don't see how going in with the mentality that we necessarily need to play backs against the wall and try and nick a 0-0. I don't think he's going to set up that way. I think he's going to try and win the game.
Potentially, side that press, and I think you part reflecting on the Tottenham game actually last year when you went in really tight with Harry Kane and then the runners beyond just killed you. Is there not lessons learned from that game to think don't really want to do that and leave that space for Haaland? Everyone's already thinking about it, aren't they?
Yeah, I think our teams. I think we've got a couple of our midfields more drilled, and I think Willock in there as well as a kind of runner rather than defensive holder. I think, and he initiates the press really well. I have a feeling. I think Howe might go for it in this game.
That's interesting.
It does change things. That I was envisioning just a park the bus 5 at the back, Haaland not getting much space.
I don't think he'll be that game.
If it is an open game, it does change things. It does increase Haaland's prospects a lot.
Does that change your mind, Jonny?
Maybe. I just think as
I said, that's one scenario though. I could also see, City do drop points in 6 games a year, and if you're looking at the way it's set up, like Liverpool already dropped 4 points. Like early season, like could we catch them on an off day? Like potentially. And like if you were to say like City going to drop points in 6 games this season, like St James's Park, wouldn't be far off that list.
Jonny wouldn't say that. I'd say it's Tottenham, Crystal Palace, and Southampton home and away. I think.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Would you? No, listen. It's obviously a very difficult game for City at the weekend. Does Haaland need this space, John?
It's obviously a good topic, isn't it? After the weekend, 8 touches, 2 passes, didn't have much involvement in the game. The argument was there before he signed for City was that he needs more space. But I think like you said, James, if Foden passes to him and he taps that in, and you alluded to it, I thought this as well. He's if the keeper gets more of a hand on Foden's goal, he's tapping that in as well. If he scores them too, then you're thinking, oh, he's a brilliant poacher. He's going to score goals. He's going to score goals even when he has no space. So no, I don't think he necessarily needs to. He just needs to be there, like Pep says in his press conference. Foden and the other players need to know that Haaland will be there now, where players weren't before. he's just going to be there in the middle. So
do you think
fine.
Foden would have got a rocket for that? Not passing it to him?
Yeah, he will have done. I think the fact you've taken off at half time was maybe partly because of that, partly because it was probably harsh to drop Grealish. I think the idea that Foden is going to be in Pep's bad books for the next few games is wrong. I can see.
Agreed.
Like I said, maybe just get him off at half time, maybe have a word of him. Like I tweeted it, it's very unlike Foden that. So maybe Pep was trying to just set an example, just saying we won't have any of that anymore. If there's a guy in the middle, you have to pass to him.
What would you say to anyone who said to you, I'm going to sell Haaland this week for Harry Kane?
I don't really know why you would.
I'm in agreement, by the way.
Andy, let's talk. Obviously, his question was, would you sell him because the fixtures are more appealing, especially given maybe that midweek one against Nottingham Forest? Who's Kane got that midweek anyway? I think I saw
West Ham away.
West Ham away, exactly. So it's not that easy a fixture for Kane anyway. And if Haaland did start against Forest at home and you switched him to Kane just in the hope that he maybe would be rested for that midweek game, you'd be kicking yourself. And I'd be sticking with Haaland. Like I say, the stats might have not necessarily been for him at the weekend, but like I say, anyone that watched the highlights knows that even though he got 8 touches, he could have had 2 tap-ins. And
honestly, I don't get it. As someone that supports a team that's played with one striker for as long as I can remember, like seeing dual striker in those positions that he got into, like that's what you want. Like Wilson never gets those chances, and the build-up play never allows him to get in positions where like he's at the 6-yard box and someone can square it to him and tap it in. Like very rarely happens. So like as soon as you see that, that's all you really want from him. Like, I don't give a shit that he touched the ball 8 times. He like could have.
People are sort of like. People are talking about it as if like Aguero was some amazing false 9 that dropped in and like linked up all the play. Aguero was just as bad as Haaland. He just came back, did wall passes, and then went and got back in the box, just like Haaland did.
Yeah,
Haaland doesn't even do the wall passes though, does he?
No. But yeah, as long as he's there, like I said, he's not there to sort of build up. But all the rest of the players can. You just need a man in the box to finish the chances, like we've said last season, and he was just unlucky.
It's repetition, isn't it? Like training ground repetition. Like if you piss about and take him out of your team, it's going to click sooner or later, and he's going to get 3 or 4 like tap-ins in one game. You don't want to miss that. I wouldn't dick about and take Haaland now. He's not going anywhere for me.
Ask anyone who didn't. If that game was on TV, and ask anyone that didn't own Haaland, was it scary? Even though he got 8 touches, they'd say yes.
Yeah, quite agree. For clarity, I've seen a few people say it, and they wouldn't enter my mind to sell Haaland at the moment. Not at all, actually. So a similar question for you though. Tony's proving popular. Wilson to Tony.
Well, I did Robbo to Tony in a roundabout sort of way this week, so I don't have that particular dilemma. Yeah, I'd say so. I think Wilson's, you pick him for the good fixtures, and you don't really want him for the bad. Like we're still not creating that many chances, and I think there's still the side that we've got. If we don't make any more signings, I think we'll probably continue to struggle to create a lot of chances for him. Having said that, he should have fucking scored against Brighton. Well, he did score against Brighton for that goal that was disallowed. I don't know if you both saw that or not, for the high foot.
Everyone's
insane. Which would have been a Trippier assist as well.
I didn't know that bit. Yeah,
he pings he chipped the ball into him. So yeah, I said Trippier's that's Trippier for you. He could have got -1 point and could have ended up with 12, like 10, 11. Yeah. So I would make that switch if I was doing it now. Okay. Plus, like Wilson, like any game he could break down. He's looking fit and sharp, but yeah, it's an injury waiting to happen. I think there's game week 6 or game week 8 is the time to look at Wilson again.
Jonny, most people have got 2 premiums at the moment. There are obviously teams there with 3. We know. Is there any case for those 2 to just be KDB and Haaland?
Yeah.
Could you get away with that? Someone definitely listened to this will have gone like Son to De Bruyne last week or Kane to Haaland and now be sitting there with both. Can you go into this week now and just stay with that, or do you feel a necessity to move?
Yeah, I think you can. Yeah, I think you can Kev, like we said at the start of the season, he's obviously on electric form. His home form's brilliant. He's got 5 home games out the next 8. If you're willing to go against Salah, just go with it.
Which one would you captain if you had both and that was your only solution this week?
This week, I don't know. That I had thought about that. I don't know. I don't know which one you'd captain. They're both in the away games. Maybe Haaland. In the home games, I don't know. Not much to split them really.
No, yeah, they're both going to go off at home, aren't they? There's nothing in this idea that Haaland's going to be better away from home than at home, is there? It can't be.
I don't know. Again, it's just like I'm just picturing in my head like holes that KDB has got in the past. Apart from obviously the famous Wolves one, they've just all come at home really.
Yeah. In complete agreement.
And Haaland bagged 2 against West Ham on the first day of the season. Like I said, there's just not enough data to go off. But that'd be my thing.
I wouldn't be surprised if that does actually pan out that way. I think Haaland away from home's got more avenues. Like I've got a picture of the game in my head. Like I just think he can score from balls played down the middle, and he's kind of running off the shoulder of one of our defenders, and he's got a 1-on-1. So similar to the Bournemouth, West Ham goals. Like I could see that happening. I could also see, like, if Foden passes, him getting a tap in from 6 yards potentially. So I think away from home, like he is quite an attractive option for me. Like I wouldn't put anyone off captaining this week, based on the other games. And if you were to assume that there might be a problem with the Liverpool Man U game on Monday, I haven't heard anything about like potential like cancellations or whatever. But these, I don't know. I think I wouldn't rule him out as a captain option if you've got him.
That second goal against West Ham was just like the dream goal that the
Textbook,
City
isn't it?
been dreaming of. Like I said to you in pre-season, James, about how it's like an extra string to our bow, just being able to just put Haaland in behind. We haven't had that lightning striker. I think I literally described it to you as like, if we managed to get the ball to De Bruyne on the half turn in midfield and Haaland's away, De Bruyne plays him in. Like I said, that goal was just absolutely textbook as how we've envisioned it. And when he went through, that was Sterling or maybe even Jesus to a point, you wouldn't be confident, but there was just no doubt he was going to tuck that away. Like I say, I did get giddy when he scored that.
No, I think you're very much allowed to, mate. He's already up there with one of the best number 9s in the world, if not, and has got every capability of smashing every goal scoring record going. Fitness permitting, touch woods. Well, Harry Kane's coming for that one, mate. Now that I mean, the best thing for me was City signing Haaland, put that one to bed. I'll keep Harry now for another few months at least anyway. So, Si, if you're saying potential Haaland captain this weekend, go on then, correct score prediction.
Well, we're the only 2 teams not to concede a goal, so I'm going to go for a 0-0.
You don't mean that. What's your real correct score prediction?
Honestly, I have no fucking idea. This could be anything. Like it could honestly be anything. Like if we won this game, like it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility. A draw, I think, as well could happen. I think our home form has been pretty immaculate the last couple of months. I think the atmosphere is going to be incredible. We catch City on an off day, like could get a point. Realistically, like everyone's going to pile in on City to win this. And you look at the form from last season, our squad hasn't changed that much. So you're not going to get a score out of me. I'm just going to say I'm looking forward to watching this game. And I can't say I
ain't finishing this podcast, so I get a score out of you, mate.
Fuck it. 2-2. I'm going 2-2.
Jonny?
Score draw.
I think Si's right. It's a tough fixture for City. I can see a draw. I can also see a City win. I'll go for a tight City win, maybe 2-1.
Yeah, you can get something out of this, Si. Absolutely, you can. It's not going to be a walk in the park week. It can be for City because they can do that to you, but I don't think it will be. I'm concerned about the what you said about the pressing out. I'm also concerned about Gomes in that midfield area. I'm not concerned about him personally as a player, but I just think to stop City picking up the pockets in those areas will be very, very difficult. So I will go 2-1 City as well, I think. But yeah, close. I wouldn't be shocked if you got a draw, Si. I wonder if there's something psychological for City as well that they feel like they've got an advantage. You might just lower that pressure you feel you've always got with them, Jonny. You've got a buffer. And I know it's 36 games ago, but it might it might psychologically play a part as it did for you in a few games, sort of early winter time and stuff. I don't think you'd have dropped the points you did over that period if you hadn't had that gap. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I think. Okay, cool. So where can everyone follow you on the bird app, mate?
FPL Bibs.
Good man. And you got a basketball channel you want to sell as well, right?
Yeah, on Instagram's Courtside 1891. If you like basketball, that's not NBA, but we do have NBA players playing in Eurobasket next couple of weeks. So
I have no idea what you said, but yeah, go and subscribe to that channel. Jonny, where can everyone follow you on the bird app, mate?
At FPL Pringle.
Good man. Please pass on our regards and congratulations to your missus as well, mate. Hopefully, trains permitting, I might see you in Manchester before our game week 7 encounter, but I think that the trains might try and stop me coming, mate. But I'll have a ticket. Right, super. Cheers, Si. Thanks, Jonny. That's episode 1000 done. Suja's going to return to join me tomorrow and have a party and celebrate it in somehow, because it feels like some sort of incredible milestone from sitting in front of a dodgy mic sitting on the table to what we're trying to do now.
It is, James. You guys should be very proud.
Do you know what? We are, Si. Thank you very much. I should let you do that speech, shouldn't I? So, yeah, look, it's only been 3 people ever on the 1000th podcast, and Suja wasn't fucking one of them, which is quite amusing. It normally pisses off, doesn't it? No, brilliant. Thanks so much, guys. Very best of luck to both of you. Next week's Clash of the Correspondents, next Thursday, will be Tom Med and Sean Newton previewing the Game Week 4 encounter between Brentford and Everton. Other than that, just leaves me to say thanks again to Si and to Jonny. Good luck for the weekend, guys. Cue music, please, man, child.